Thank you. Let's bring in Gavin Bade. Gavin is a reporter on trade and economic policy at the Wall Street Journal to talk more about this issue of tariffs. Gavin, great to have you with us here on France 24. We always appreciate your time. And I'm wondering, 12 months ago, did you or any of your colleagues see this coming, the extent of Trump's will to impose trade tariffs with, it seems to many people, arbitrary penalties fixed to certain products in certain countries?
I think we expected a big tariff push from the Trump administration. I don't think anyone expected it to go quite this broad, and I don't think we expected it to happen quite so quickly. I think your guest, Monty, really had it right that this is a power play from the Trump administration. As much as it is about rebuilding American manufacturing or lowering the trade deficit, it's also demonstrating that he ultimately has power over the global economy. That's what he wants to assert in this, whether it's this dispute with Europe over Greenland or in any of these other tariff disputes. So I think this is a power play from the U.S. president, and that's why you see him going so hard and so fast.
A power play, some might say an ego play. Let's not get into personal remarks like that, although I started it and I'll stop it there. Gavin, one thing I can ask, I think, is in your assessment, is it true that countries that are heavy on tariffs, actually it can come back and bite them?
I think some people would say that it's already coming back to bite the U.S. I mean, consumer goods prices have stayed relatively stable. They've been up a little bit. But let's look at the manufacturing sector where Trump has really located. That's his goal, is to rebuild domestic manufacturing. We've lost over 70,000 jobs since his Liberation Day tariff announcement last April. And that's happened even as manufacturing productivity is up in the United States. And if you talk to businesses here, a lot of them say it's because of these tariffs, especially tariffs on what we call intermediate goods, things that U.S. factories will import from abroad and use them to make goods in the U.S. Those costs have really gone up for intermediate goods, and we've seen a lot of manufacturers shed jobs because of it. So there's a lot of rosy rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration, especially when he visits plants like the Ford plant you're showing right now. The jobs numbers are just not there for him, and consumer sentiment is down. People feel bad about the economy in the United States, and they're blaming him. So you could say that it's already coming back to bite.
Eagle eyes, Gavin, you spotted the Ford plant there. Well done. Because we're going to use the example of the iconic truck, the Ford F-150, which I wish I could afford one. They're actually lovely vehicles, aren't they? If we can take a look at how it breaks down the actual construction of one of these cars, because as I understand it from research I did before the program, 45% of that truck would be US-Canada construction, and some 55% of it would be parts from Mexico, China, and Japan. Now, that figure came out before Trump got into his second term and decided that he would slap tariffs on Canada. So that would, again, sort of create even more costs in creating this iconic vehicle inside the United States, would it not?
I mean, that's where the logic would lead you, right? And I think we've seen some of these auto companies say they're going to, restart some production in factories like the one Trump has visited. But we've also seen that auto prices in the U.S. are quite high right now. Those Ford F-150s are very expensive vehicles. And I think this is one of the sectors where you could maybe make it out to be a success story for some of the jobs in the sector. If you talk to, unionized auto workers in Michigan, where I'm from, a lot of them are very happy about this tariff regime. But let's remember that final vehicle assembly is just one part of one industry. And there are other places that are not doing quite as well. So this is going to be one place that I think we see the Trump administration really focus on in the year to come, especially as we renegotiate the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade agreement that Trump has already undermined. But it comes up for review this year. And the automotive parts and where they are made are going to be a very key part of that renegotiation. So that's something to watch in the months to come here.
Does that smell like a U-turn to you on Trump's part?
I think that, the administration is going to push for more manufacturing of trucks and components here in the United States, and cars as well. I think where we see a U-turn is on some of the other tariffs that he's put on, especially foodstuffs. We saw things like beef and coffee really rising in price throughout the summer and fall last year. And he very quietly did a U-turn on a lot of those. Beef can now come into the United States tariff-free, so can coffee. There are a number of other food goods. And it was kind of a tacit admission recognition from the administration, although they would never say it publicly, that okay, the grocery prices went up for consumers. People are not happy about that. And they are very worried internally that they are losing this debate over affordability. It really scared them when they saw Zoran Mondani win in New York on that affordability message. We saw Democratic governors in 2 other states went on a message like that. That's why you're seeing him kind of go so hard on some of these state interventions in the economy, whether it's credit card rates or banning institutional investors from buying single family homes. At least that's something he wants to do. These are all things aimed at trying to win that affordability argument that so far he's losing.
Indeed, we appreciate the generosity of your analysis, Gavin. It really is giving us a really roundly shaped view of things that are preoccupying not just Americans, but the political classes too. Can I ask you about the issue of Greenland, the issue of the tariffs that Trump is threatening us with over here in Europe, 10% by February the 1st, 25% by June the 1st. Even, I think, he shouted at Emmanuel Macron from afar that he'd tax French wines and champagne by 200%. This all seems rather scatological, but I'm sure there is a game plan behind all of this for Trump.
Perhaps and perhaps not. I mean, we've seen Trump many times before in this first year threaten eye-watering tariffs and then walk back from the brink. Remember, at one point, we had tariffs of 145% on China. Those came down very quickly as the stock market and the bond market responded. The markets were not doing well today in the United States. The stock market is down. The bond market is not doing well. That will be a constraint on his ability to act here, as is the coming Supreme Court decision, as you mentioned, on these tariffs. We expect that he would try to use the same emergency authority for these tariffs as he has used in the past. That is very much at risk in the Supreme Court right now. And other tariff authorities that he might put in place don't have the same sort of flexibility. So, I mean, we want to take him seriously when he makes these tariff threats because, of course, it can be very economically damaging. But we also should note that, he has so-called chickened out many times before on a number of these tariff threats. And I think it's, there are some big questions about how he would even institute these. He's talking about only hitting some EU member nations and not others. It's unclear how you could even make that work. It's unclear which law he would use. So I think we're very much a wait and see moment on these tariffs. It's more likely that he's just trying to drive European powers to the table to negotiate over Greenland. Whether that's going to work or not, I'm not sure, but that's what his trade representative was saying in Davos today.
Gavin Bade, always a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much indeed for the insight you bring every time you join us here at France 24. We always appreciate it. Gavin Bade, reporter on trade and economic policy at the Wall Street Journal. Gavin, thank you very much indeed, sir.